and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Glitch Baby, and today we're going to be doing something a little different. I know before usually I'll do tips on like Twitch and things like that, you know, how to help novice content creators or streamers get started. But today, and as you've seen at the end of my last video, I decided to do a movie review. Today's movie review is going to be Day Shift.
It's gonna be a hot one in Los Angeles. So what's on the agenda today?
Day Shift was released August 12, 2022 on Netflix and stars Jamie Foxx and Dave Franco. The story follows a man named Bud who is seemingly separated from his wife, who is at risk of losing his daughter, and wife who is apparently going to be moving away. He is a pool cleaner by day and a vampire hunter by night. That is pretty much the bare bones of the story. We have 4 things that we're going to be grading this movie on, and that is the story and plot, combat, special effects, and acting. Stick around to the end of the video because I have some things to say about one of these categories, and you guys might want to talk about it, but we'll see when we get there. First up is the combat in Day Shift. So, as many people have observed, the combat is pretty crazy. The one thing that stood out to me that I honestly absolutely loved was the contortionism, if that's even a word. The contortionist, but also like the contortionism in this movie. It was incredible, and honestly the opening scene was just my favorite. I think it always will be. There are a lot of dynamics about this movie that make it so great, but I think what really just put its claws into me and pulled me into this movie was definitely the opening fight scene. The choreography was amazing. I think that the way that just everything flowed, I mean, and let's not even like with the scene where two twin brothers, or the brothers, you know, they were in this house together, and they realized that they weren't just going in for a regular bust, like it was a nest. When they found out that it was a nest, like chaos ensued, and it was the best. If not my first, definitely my solid second favorite scene in the movie. I love combat, so I was all the way here for it. And the trick with the bullet, like, okay, I get it. I know that it's like, oh, come on, that's so, like, but whatever. Like, just, I'm not even listening to you because that was awesome. Of course, the crazier the combat, the better for me personally. And so for that, I'm gonna give this a solid 5 out of 5 for the combat in this movie. I think it was well thought out, and the person behind it, or persons behind it, like A++. Next up, we have special effects makeup. Something that I wanted to point out when I was watching this was that I could almost hardly tell where basically the makeup started. With the contortionist at the very beginning in the fight scene, the grandma, you know, in the bedroom attire, the sleep attire, like that was just awesome. I loved it very much. So that was pretty awesome. I did notice, however, after Seth kind of got bitten, that there was an animation with, you know, like with his skin. Or in his neck, like around his neck area, that I could kind of tell like was animated. Like to me, it was kind of blatant that it was animated. And I don't know how much makeup was used, you know, in conjunction with also adding an animation to it, because obviously like his head is not attached to his body at one point because, well, Bud cuts its head off because he lunged at him.
Hungry. Seth.
So there was a scene where Bud and Seth, they're in the car and they hit a bump, and you know, you see his head like split from his body a little bit, even though he's like trying to hold his head onto his neck. And you see like that weird like black slush or whatever. I feel like that could have been animated better. But that's just my opinion, I guess, on the animation, which I kind of always tie into special effects and makeup, because I feel like special effects and makeup and special effects, like the digital part of it, like they go together. So if you're going to put 2 and 2 together to make something that looks real, like you kind of don't want to, there needs to be a balance basically. You don't want to just like let one fall to the wayside. And I feel like for small moments like that, I could see where it did. But other than that, I really thought that the special effects makeup was awesome. There were just spots, it was spotty. It felt kind of spotty for me. There's not too much to comment on the special effects except, you know, like when there was the opportunity for special effects to be put in play, it was a flip of a coin. For that, I am giving special effects makeup a 3 out of 5. Number 3 that I have on my list is acting. As you guys know, the people that were in this movie were some pretty top tier actors. Dare I even say A-listers. Jamie Foxx, you have Franco, and who could not forget freaking Snoop Dogg. I will say that when it came to Jamie Foxx and Franco's character, you didn't entirely expect there to be this well balance of like comedy and seriousness. It almost was like, you know, Seth kind of became like this little son in a way who wanted their dad to be proud of them, and the way that they made that work, just it was kind of cute, honestly. And you know, Bud was definitely more of like I know what I'm doing, I want to do this by myself. And I think that it was cool that he kind of ended up warming up to Seth. And the way that happened, I think, was very natural. It felt very natural, and watching them act together was just interesting. It was very interesting because I think that at a first glance, it doesn't look like they go together. Like character-wise, roles that they have played, like the history of like the movies they have been in, you kind of wouldn't expect for them to be a duo. So they made that work, and they made that work so naturally, and I think that's what kept me also invested in the movie in general, just watching those two interact with each other.
Really? I'm sorry.
Put that gun down.
Okay.
Take your finger out the trigger.
Right, okay.
Just watch my 6.
6.
I definitely think that Jamie Foxx and Snoop Dogg are kind of two of the many actors who I would consider A-listers who, when they appear in a movie, they are not their character. You understand that they are playing a character, but the person watching and enjoying the film does not necessarily put those two together. They're two separate things, because I understand that Snoop Dogg is Big John. I understand that completely, 100%. But I don't look at him and go, oh my God, Big John was so funny. I don't say that. I'm gonna go, oh my God, Snoop Dogg was so funny. So I feel like it doesn't matter. Like, he's just going to just eat any character that is given to him because it's freaking Snoop Dogg. The same way with Jamie Foxx. Like, it doesn't matter. It's Jamie Foxx.
What the hell is you doing? I'm saving your black ass.
What are you talking about?
Man, you go get your family right now. I got this.
We can't do it like this.
You know I work alone. West Side for life.
Carla Souza, I'm already a big fan of hers because of How to Get Away with Murder. And it was honestly so weird seeing her play a role like that where she was the villain. In How to Get Away with Murder, she's sassy, snappy, very like, you know, Hispanic pride. She's just so human, and she has like all these layers to her as that character in How to Get Away with Murder. Whereas, you know, her playing the character of Audrey, I will say for me personally, it was a little weird because I'm not used to her, you know, I'm not used to seeing her in that light. I'm used to seeing her in other shows where she's not a monster and a villain, and she's trying to, you know, she's this real estate agent who is trying to create a neighborhood of vampires. Okay, I just it was interesting. Do I think that as far as like, was she believable to me?
Do you know what the definition of insanity is, Sasha? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. You cling to the old ways like a tick on a dog's ass. And look at where that's gotten us.
And there was other elements of acting, just like, you know, with the vampires, and, you know, how they would like growl and stuff and like jump, and I love the vampires. I loved all the villains. I love the villains, and, you know, when it came time to fight and there were all these villains or these vampires that were just like, yeah, get the good guys, kill them, bite them, or whatever. It was really awesome. When it comes to the characters that I would say were like the main focus of the movie, like, okay, this is about Bud, you know, and Seth and them like killing vampires and teaming up with awesome people to go kill more vampires. again, there's some hit and misses, but there are more hits than there were misses, if that makes any sense. But that being said, the acting was still great all around, just the entire cast. So I'm going to give the acting a 4 out of 5. Okay, so now we are getting into the very last category, which is the story or the plot, whichever you want. The story, plot, the plot, story, the plot, the story. Oh my gosh, I have so much to unpack here. I almost feel like I need to make a separate video about this. But for the sake of the movie review, I'm gonna try my best to keep this short, sweet, and simple, while still sinking my teeth into all the things that I wanna say. But I might make a separate video because oh my god. Because I have so much to say about this, I'm gonna break this into like 2 segments here. So I'm gonna have pros and cons. So let's start with the pros. Okay, so I actually had to get a list out, kind of, cause this is just, my brain just cannot even track. Lore, okay, because I think they did an amazing job with implementing some lore into the movie, and that's, like, who doesn't love lore, you know? So as it goes in this story, there are a few types of vampire. We have Southern, Eastern, Spider, Juvie, what was the other one? And Uber. Honestly, I think Uber are like that, like the alpha. I think Uber vampires in this movie are like the top vampire. Like that's the vampire that you would want to be if you wanted to just like be the leader, main boss of the video game, kind of like villain, you know? Like Uber vampire has everything, whereas like, I don't know, like a juvie vampire, you have like half of what a standard vampire has. So I think for the juvie vampires, you can't even consume humans, I think. Like you have to eat like rodents, which is kind of sad. For some reason they can't get their protein from like humans, I think, so they have to, you know, consume like rodents instead. Apparently juvie vampires can't even like regenerate. Like if they get their, I don't know, if they get cut or something like that or shot, like they either can't rejuvenate or they can't rejuvenate as fast. But I think, or not regenerate. Rejuvenate, sure. They can rejuvenate, but they can't process human blood, so they have to eat small animals. So yeah. Being a juvie vampire is like the last vampire type you want to be. Also, something that's super cool that I found out is that there are familiars, which if you are a fan of vampire everything, then you know that familiar or familiars is a very common terminology that's used in movies like this. And that just refers to a person who is a human, but they work for vampires. They basically do some, if not all, of their dirty work. Also, some more fun fact about this lore is that these vampires cannot regenerate. Cannot regenerate without their fangs. So essentially, if you remove a vampire's fangs, it's a death sentence for them. Also, they cannot reproduce. So if they want to have more vampires, they will have to bite a human. Something else that I definitely appreciate about these types of vampires in a day shift is that there are specific ways that a vampire is killed, and vampires are not all killed the same. So the way that you would have to hunt a Eastern vampire is not the same way you would hunt and kill a Uber vampire. So there's wood, sure, like everyone's like, oh, a stake to the heart, like yes, but you know, in this particular, you know, in this particular movie in Day Shift, you have to use a combination of silver and certain types of woods in order to actually successfully kill a vampire. And I think that that was well thought out and very cool. They pretty much had a rule book or a playbook on how to actually hunt each type of vampire. And I don't think I've ever seen that in any vampire movie that I have ever watched. That was very clever. And speaking of clever, I did not know until I watched this movie again, because the first time I was just kind of enjoying everything, but when I went back and I watched this movie again, apparently there is a gas that vampires release when you kill them that needs to be washed off immediately, or else any vampire within like, I don't know, a 300-mile radius is going to be able to actually smell and track them to you. So once you've killed them and like just they've gotten all their blood or whatever on you, like in that gas that you can't really see, you have to go and wash that off as soon as possible. Otherwise, you are a GPS for almost every vampire in the city. Unfortunately, that's the only real plus that I have to say about the story. And that's for a few reasons, because like I said before, I think one of the great things about the story and the plot is the lore. I also think that one of the worst things about this movie is the lore. While this movie is pretty incredible for what it is if you take it at face value, at the same time, there was so much given with regards to the movie and the plot and the lore that they still somehow left out the lore. When I say that, I mean this in the sense that, okay, we got no background, for example. Like, how did Bud, was it Jablonski? Bud Jablonski. How did he even become a vampire? And does anyone even know, outside of the characters that we were introduced to in the movie, do we even know that the world is aware that vampires exist, or are they just hunting them in secret, because they don't want it to get out to the public that vampires exist because it'll cause global panic? And I just, are they even global, or are they, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I would assume so if they have like Eastern and Southern, vampire names like that, but at the same time, it's a guessing game at that point, you don't know. An example of this that honestly confused me was when they were, I don't even remember where they were, but they were somewhere where there was a parking lot in the area. I think when Bud, towards the end of the movie, Bud ran to go get his daughter, and he pulls her out, and there's a guy who was getting out of a car. He throws his daughter in the car, says, hey, here's your game, here's your headphones, put these on. And just as he closes the door and circles his truck to get in, the guy is on him and he's about to pull out a weapon, and Bud blows his freaking head off. And I kept thinking to myself that if you pay attention in the background, you see people walking around with grocery carts. You can tell that they're in a big parking lot. And he just drove away. And I'm like, okay, well now there's just a random dead vampire just laying there. Is he gonna get baked by the sun? Is he going to see like a pile of ashes on it? Like what is going to happen? I don't understand. So I was kind of just like left wondering, like, what is the consequences of him just publicly executing a vampire out in public like that, because they were in some grocery type looking parking lot. Something else that really bothered me is that at the end of the movie, the daughter, the mother, and Bud, they're all like leaving this warehouse facility looking area, and the wife, when they were, at first being kidnapped by Audrey and her gang of goons, she was freaking out. The wife was freaking out, okay? And the daughter was just like, I hate you.
I'm not afraid of you. I hate you.
I'm like, okay, but why is she not, this is a child. This is like, what, an 11-year-old child. Why isn't she terrified? Why is a mom freaking out but not this 11-year-old child? I'm just, can someone fill me in? I'm confused. And then at the end of the movie, when they were walking past all the dead bodies, please understand that these were not vampires that they killed. These are humans. There are dozens of human bodies laying all over the floor. And everyone, I mean, I expect Bud, because he's done this way too much, like at this point, this is nothing for him. But the wife, and especially the daughter, why is everyone just, oh, we're just walking over dead bodies, and I want to be a vampire hunter when I grow up, Dad.
I'm gonna be a vampire hunter too.
No.
Is there nothing, is there no, baby, close your eyes, I don't want you to see this, they're just walking hand in hand through a sea of human dead bodies, and she's just like, I want to be a vampire hunter when I grow up too. It really broke the realism, I guess. And I know that sounds a little silly because there's vampires in it, but I'm like, there are so many movies that make that vampires exist seem so real, and you get just so sucked into like, man, I really want the protagonist in this movie to win. I want them to overcome all of this. And I could give so many examples of other, movies like this, and I'm not gonna bore you with that, but you guys kind of know where I'm going with this. That wasn't normal and it wasn't natural, and that kind of destroyed the fact that I was watching this really cool journey with Bud. Like, it just kind of ruined that for me. Something else that I wanted to point out with the daughter is that when they were in that high-speed chasing scene, she, again, was not acting scared, concerned, fearful. There was just no natural emotion from this daughter, but there was from the wife. And that just bothered me because I was getting more acting, honestly, from the wife than I was from the daughter. And that was driving me a little crazy. Every time the daughter had camera time, I just was pulled out of this fantasy world and back into my living room. Some more cons that I want to discuss about the story or the plot of this movie is the cliches. Now granted, there were only 3 cliches, but these were cliches that were very important that I felt I needed to address because we've seen this enough. Hollywood, stop it. The first cliche that I immediately caught was the father who was about to lose their child and they need to save their family by doing something extreme. Liar Liar, starring Jim Carrey, is one example. There are so many others, but that was immediately the first movie that I thought of where I realized that, oh, they're playing up the cliche that this lone father who can't get his shit together needs to get his shit together. He's gonna lose his family. And just like in Liar Liar, they wanted to move away. And I just stopped. Like, I don't really even know how to dig it any more into that. Like that, I'm personally over it. I've seen it too many times. Move along. Another cliche that I caught was towards the end, and maybe even parts of the beginning of the movie, where Audrey lets Bud know that there is a war coming. And again, there's a lot of vampire movies specifically that I could definitely just point out where there's a war coming. I don't know what that's about, but it's something else that needs to stop. I don't know why there needs to always be a war between vampires and humans and why we can't get the heck along, but there's always a war. There is always a war. We saw it in Blade and we saw it in Twilight. There are many more that I can think of, honestly, but again, these are 2 that immediately came to my brain when I was listening to, like, why is Audrey even doing this? And oh, there's a war coming. Why? Why is it? Why another one? But I get that we are food to the vampires, but at the same time, like, why is there a war? The third cliche is, oh my gosh, this cliche is as old as time. This probably started in the 40s and I don't even know it, okay? But I'm pretty sure it derives from the freaking 1800s at this point. The rock music slow-mo walk-up when there is about to be this big fight scene. And again, these are almost specific to action movies and almost completely like exclusive to vampire. Not even vampire like action movies, just like action movies in general. When there's like 2 sides and they're about to fight, there's always that like slow-mo walk up, you know? It's like what happens right after the superhero landing, you know? It's like, oh yeah, here's my team, here's my rock music, here's a slow-mo, we're about to kill it. And then like there's just bullets and swords and blood flying for like the next 5 minutes. It's so useless that it would not change anything about the intensity of the fight scene. So I don't know why Hollywood chooses to keep doing it, but I could scream about that for the next 20 minutes and I won't. But yeah, another cliche that I caught. So just guys, Hollywood, look, here's a book. Here's a book of cliches. Please let it go. Just burn it. Burn the book. But before you do, can I just say something? Okay, thanks. I thought it was pretty funny, and honestly, you can't convince me otherwise, but when Big John went to the back and, you know, Bud and him were going into the facility, the Union, from the time that he walked up to the door to scan, I think, his thumb, when they were walking into Seeger's office, as they like were entering the Union facility to go to Seeger's office, that entire scene, and again, no one is going to convince me otherwise, that entire scene came from the scene in Undercover Brother when they needed to go inside of the Brotherhood facility, okay? No one's gonna convince me that that was not borrowed from Undercover Brother, okay? Like, no one.
Blackness confirmed. You got sold.
Agents report to the ready room.
Welcome to the Brotherhood.
I'm not, you know, I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying how dare you. I'm just saying I saw that. All right, babes, well, I think that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching and for hanging out with me while I partially drag day shift. But if you think that I missed something, definitely leave it in the comment section below. Or if you think that I got something completely wrong, you know, like you're just like, no, I completely disagree with you, Glitch, sorry. Definitely let me know in the comment section below. And don't forget to follow me on all social media platforms at glitchbaby, spelled with 3 Y's. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.